What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord Dr. Professor Dark Joker here with another edition of Traditional Fans with Opinions, where I'll give my reviews for whoever I watched, read, or played today. And who are traditional fans with opinions? That is myself, and that is you, the viewers. With all that being said, on with the reviews. One Piece, Special 8, or also called 1128.5. So basically, this is a recap of, you know, Drooly Bonnie's past and Bartholomew Kuma's, or at least what's been shown in the anime so far. As kind of like a lead up to like a big flashback involving those two characters that's starting next week. And I will say I am looking forward to that because I've read the manga. Anyway, so for the basically just recaps it. You have Chopper and Carrot explain it. Basically, it's Chopper explaining it to Carrot. They're in like some like, that little like recap chibi-esque thing, whatever. And so like Carrot's thinking, hey, who's eating all my carrots? Chopper says that he thinks it's Bonnie, and he's one of like basically Carrot's like, hey, who's eating my carrot? Who's how these carrots getting here, and who cut off the transponder snail? Chopper says it's Bonnie because he says she's probably embarrassed about some of the past shown by the snail, and that she hates carrots, so she threw all them and Carrot just happens to be getting those carrots. That's the theory. And then Chopper's like, "Oh, I'm hungry." He starts eating some carrots. Carrot starts biting his head because she's not happy about him eating her carrots. I thought, it's a recap special. There ain't much to say. Now, One Piece does do well at recaps. Like, I mean, granted, that is a low bar to set. It's a recap special. There ain't much to say. But it was a decent recap. With the series as long as One Piece, I could kind of understand why they want to do so many do recaps. Especially with their release, the way they do release schedules for the show. So they say, hey, well, right before we start the big Kuma flashback, let's recap what we've seen from Kuma and Bonnie. Makes some sense. Whatever. I'm not gonna get too pissed off about that. And so it was a decent special, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to next week's start to the Kuma flashback. Yeah, and then next up, One Piece chapter 1148. So basically in this one, so Robin fights, you know, she fights like, the God Knight that basically was threatening some of the kids, you know, basically like she like, basically just goes at like attacks the guy, attacks Sommer, and, like she does like her like, her like Flores attacks whatever, cracks his back or whatever, kind of what she does to people. So Sommer's like, wait, are you in love with me? And then like basically you see Robin like grab him and basically they both like jump off this cliff and Summer's like, uh, this supposed to be like a love leap of death or whatever. And Robin's like, no, just want to get you away from the children because of his storm powers. Then she disappears, revealing that it's a clone created by her like flower hands. And so Summer, and then like Robin gets over to like some of the other Straw Hats around where Jinbei, Brooke, Nami, Chopper are at. Then like then Sommers gets back and like tack attacks them. And then Scopper Gabon appears and attacks, Sommer, like looking pissed. And while it's going on, you have Gunpo's threatening the kids, and Ron just says something, and basically Jerule's being threatened to like destroy the school or else all the kids will die. Ron just says she loves the schools, that's where her friends go to. She loves the library, and then she likes learning and all that, and she thinks that burning the library in the school would cause trouble for everyone, and she says that they shouldn't do things to make people upset. And she says if they lose the library in school in order just to stop her from falling off the branch, that would be really sad. So she's like, she says she thinks she should just fall instead. She tells Jewel she'll be all right, and you see like Raja crying, like all the giants are crying, like they're all like like basically like the little girl being so brave. And then Joe's like, screw it. He tells Angie to like burn the school and the library because he can't let the little one die. And so yeah, dude, yeah. So you see like little Ranja being brave, sweet girl, and and so that's probably why Somers is pissed because right after Somers gets back, basically he uses his thorns on the real Robin. So right as she frees Usopp, Nami, Jinbei, Chopper, all them, and basically that's when Scott Wrong gets there with his axe or whatever, and basically that's supposed to imply he's about to fight him. And it seems like he knows Somers somehow. Seems like it's like they had met before based on the dialogue. So I don't know if that's gonna be a flashback that's shown, or if that's something to do with whatever happens. I mean, obviously Scott Gabon being part of the group that went to Raftel, he knows the truth about the world. He knows about what happened in the Void Century, and Somers knows he knows. Like everyone knows, basically about probably all the God Knights know that the Roger Pirates, the ones who went to Raftel, knew about the Void Century. Right? The only ones who did not go there, you know, were amongst everyone who was part of the Roger Pirates. The only ones who didn't go to Raftel were Shanks, Buggy, because Buggy was sick and couldn't go, and Shanks stayed behind to help him out. Because he wanted to let her deal with it on his own. And of course, you have Toki, who basically she got sick because so she Momonosuke, Hiyori, you know Inarashi and Nekomamushi where they went back to Wano, and of course Douglas Bullet. I don't think he would. I don't recall him being there. Like he's not shown as a member of the crew when that happened. So obviously he's from a movie, so he may not even canonically a member. Anyway, so yeah, so interesting if there's something about that in regards to how Somers and Scott Gabon know each other. Or really, so it looks like there was a past incident regarding the God Knights going to Elbaf. That could also be why they know each other. So I'm interested if that develops, which that could be part of what likely will be a big Loki flashback that's coming. That's probably something to do with that. That's probably gonna be developed in later chapters. I'm interested to see what happens. So yeah, I really like this chapter. News Exorcist chapter 97. So in this one, basically you have, you know, Kazusa, invites Gakuro to the festival, and then, her mother says that there's a spider, so and that she needs Gakuro to kill the spider. It's revealed that should just be a ploy to like for her mother to beat Gakuro because she thinks they're dating. So she makes some croquets for them, and then when she meets Gakuro, she's like after a little bit, she's like, "All right, you have permission to date," and then they're both like, this ain't that ain't it." And Kazusa is really embarrassed. Basically, she there's like this shelf that lists all some of her prizes, some of her happy memories. It was like one was a present from Gakuro, and so like Kazusa blushes. Gakuro's like, "Hey, your face is red." And it looks like the wind blows up her skirt. So like Gakuro gets a view, if you catch my drift. And so Kazu's face gets red again. She's like, don't. And she's like, forget about that. So the next, then basically there's a whole thing about Suzaku and Ishi are talking on the phone. Suzaku says she wants to go to a festival to see Ishu and Gakuro, and Ishi's like, crap. And so Ishu lies saying that they're going to dinner, but it's like she's like, crap. I guess Gakuro's supposed to choose someone, and he wears like like a some form of kimono thing, or whatever. It's because everyone's wearing kimonos. Basically, he has to choose someone, and then Kazusa appears in front. And he's like, oh frick. He's like his face, and then like all the other girls appear in their kimonos. They're trying to. Some of them seem to be trying to get with Gakuro now. Of course, except for like the sister and all that. That will be weird. Like this ain't Game of Thrones. I don't think they're gonna go that route. So yeah, if that was a funny chapter, I do want them to move on a little bit from the romance, but at least it's funny. Like I was like, okay, let's get on to the combat. So it looks like they're trying to get him to get some big power awakening, and then it looks like they'll move on a little bit to the next phase of combat. Is seems to be what they're gonna do. So yeah, I thought it was a decent chapter. Looking forward to the next week's Elusive Samurai Chapter 202. So in this one, the Kono brothers are monks now, and they're kind of ostracized. Everyone kind of points and laughs at them. Basically, they're made to stay farther back from Takaji. And so while it's going on, Mima has helped them, you know, Muneyoshi Sunyo with, his residence, I guess, made it more, I guess, fashionable or something. You know, whatever. And basically, and so like it was like a lot of the big fighting is about to stop. A lot of the end game we're getting to that. So basically, oh, everyone, everyone starts preparing to kill the Konos. Like Tokiyuki's faction, they're all preparing to kill the Konos. Yeah. And then, basically like, they were going to like deal with it, and when they get there, everyone like removes their hats, they're prepared. Yeah. So yeah, the big fight's about to happen. Andre. Then so what happens is, everyone's fighting, everyone has their army, He's ready for battle. So it's not like just simple assassination. It's just no, it's an actual battle going on. And then yeah, Tokiyuki gets pissed and he's like he's gonna make him pay for using his retainer for Kono's using his retainer like a tool. I believe that's referring to Fubuki. So yeah, Fubuki's dead. So then you know, basically it's like Tokiyuki wants to like kind of like avenge him per se. And so yeah, so like he's like, all right, I'm making this right. So that's how they're gonna do it. And then but I would say it was a good chapter. It's a good lead into like, they're dealing with the Konos. A lot of them are gonna die. Looks like. I mean, because in history, I believe they do die. They never reach their destination. I don't think history gives a cause of death, so it does give this manga some leeway in how they handle it. But yeah, they're probably dead. They're gonna die very soon within a few chapters. So yeah, I really like this chapter. Looking forward to next week's Kagurabachi Chapter 78. So in this one, Hirohiko, who's injured, basically he's like lost his arm. He's taken outside the building by his allies. He's somehow alive. Now, basically, he looks like he's gonna be out of commission for a while. And so, you know, Chihiro and Samura, they talk for a little bit. Chihiro's like, "Hey, I know about the Sword Master. I know what happened, malediction, everything." And then Chihiro's like, "So to do it, you're gonna kill everyone, all the sword bearers?" He's like, "Yeah." I mean, because he cares about Iori's future. And basically, Chihiro's like, "Dude, Iori needs you in her life." So and basically, he's like, "I'm here to stop you." So you have the Kaminabi, they're at their headquarters. They're talking a little bit. How there was three Hishaku there at Kyoto, and then you know basically since there's like I think there's like 10 total, so there's like seven that were not there, and yeah, basically there's this other fight going on. They're trying to protect like civilians from a big battle. So it's like the seven other Hisaku are preparing to attack, another location. Yeah. Then yeah, it looks like basically yeah, they're attacking the headquarters. And yeah, basically it's like the pact between the Hishaku and Samura that's null and void now. So they say he's gonna probably die real soon, or he's gonna rejoin Kaminabi and help them out. And so the way then like as the attack you know on basically like the Kaminabi HQ is going. So like yeah, whew, it's definitely interesting, yeah. So, you know, Hakuri is, he's conscious and he's like basically a big fight's about to happen. Looks like there's a big fight going on that's about to happen at the headquarters the same time as Chihiro and Samura do their next fight. So yeah, this was a good freaking chapter. really interesting. Basically I wouldn't say we're in the end game. I'd say we are. I mean, we're in the end game of this art. Nah, beholds. This is gonna be. I think this is a manga. I think that's gonna go on for a while. Yeah, there. It's gonna be interesting. Next few chapters, I believe. All this stuff. Basically, yeah. It looks like I don't know if they're gonna put focus on the headquarters next chapter. We're gonna put focus on Chihiro and Samura's fight. Yeah, and then of course part is because the sword master is confined in the Kaminami's HQ, so that's why they're going down there to kill the guy or capture him, whatever. So yeah, this is gonna be interesting. So yeah, Hakuri Sazanami, he's gonna play roles like he's gonna be fighting those seven. How well he does, I can't say, but yeah, I thought it was a good chapter. Looking forward to next week's. Should be very action packed. Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi Chapter 43. So this one we have Kyoko Kurogane fighting Asuda Roth. So they both say they got dates they gotta go to once they're done once their fight's done. And basic they both show like very much a lot of confidence, to her face, and Asuda Roth is like, whatever. He kind of dismisses her. Yoka tries to like defeat him, but basically it's not like she can't do much. Well, I mean, she does injure him a little bit, hurt him a little bit, but she probably does more than probably what someone besides Kiyoshi's able to do. Probably does more damage, so she does do some damage, and then basically he's like, all right, like basically, like he's in after some damage that she did to him, he's able to just beat the crap out of her and like just drops her from like this tall building, whatever. She falls to the sky, but then Kiyoshi like catches her, and then basically it looks like he's about to fight Asura. So yeah, we are definitely looks like at about the final fight. Like we are at that fight. So yeah, basically it was just one fight. Pretty short for a fight. Usually fights last like three or at least like around three, at least three chapters. Like in manga fights, because you want a lot of times you want them to be a full episode, and that's three. That's basically three chapters. So yeah, surprisingly short. Still a good fight. Yeah, I'm interested to see next week's how the fight between Asudarath and Kiyoshi goes. What they do with that. And yeah, that was a good chapter. Looking forward to next week's. Ichi the Witch, chapter 33. So in this one, we see Ichi like think back to his time with Gokuraku. See how he thinks about it. He's like seemed like a prick, but like a little bit, but like he seemed odd, but like yeah, he's a nice dude. And so Descaras like blocks, them from like hitting each other because she's like, yeah, there's something's not right. He's like, basically, he's taking like 10 years worth of sadness, like all that, Bakugami had, you know, absorbed over the years. So basically, he's trying to like bear it, and yeah, if he can make it through it, if Gokuraku can make it through it, then Ichi will be able to acquire him. And he ties like their fates together, so like basically like I guess if Gokuraku dies, Ichi will die. And Deskars can't interfere, or else the trial will be failure. So Deskars fights this like giant like pig elephant thing that Bakugami summons. So yeah, it's so yeah, Ichi's trying to avoid it. Avoid, he's like, hey, I can make Gakrak suffer, but I'll drag you down with him. It seems, yeah, yeah. Basically, Ichi's trying to not kill Gokuraku. He's trying to like survive. Gokuraku's able to get back, go to his senses a little bit. Yeah, and he says, Due, he tells him Due has to do, and tells Ichi he'll leave it to him. And Ichi's like, all right, we'll figure out how to do this. We'll make it work. So yeah, looks like whatever happens to Gokuraku, whether he dies, whether he just becomes an ally, seems like Ichi is going to be the one to acquire Bakugami, which makes sense. I think it should be that's how it should be. Like let him be the one to acquire him because you know part of the story is he's the only male witch. Let's right now, while we're still in the meat story, keep that consistent. If that's something that happens near the very end, where like basically something happens where there's a bunch of male witches, maybe that's something that can work. But I say right now, let's just keep it as Ichi is the only male witch. So yeah, we don't need Gokuraku to be a witch. He can be an ally. And so Ichi probably wants to figure out how to deal with the sorrows, to turn people's feelings back to them without overloading them and basically making them all go crazy. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good chapter. Interesting how next week's go with the rest of the trial. So yeah, it should be fun. Embers Chapter 14. So in this one, Kosei has one last practice for their game against Kuroyabashi. And Haitani's real hyped up because he wants to go against Nirama again. And Suzuki is you know the coach. She's really competitive about this because Nirama is her grandfather. So they're basically the team brings up how they're both alike, like how competitive they are, how they both pride after losses. Haitani's like, wait, she didn't play. She doesn't play. She's a coach. Why is she crying if she's not on the field? And after the whole their conversations in the group bass, you have the section, the girls section. Each side has conversations about, I guess, of Suzuki crying from loss. Basically, like Haitani and Suzuki, they talk about she tells Haitani that she wanted their summer to be team summer to be longer the year before. That's why she cried. So Haitani's like, hey, this is gonna be. I promise to make this a longer summer. So and basically the entire team gets hyped up to go against Kuro, Kurobayashi. So and it was like, yeah, we've got five. Yeah, we have five straight losses against the Kurobayashi, but we're gonna win this time. So the team's all hyped up, and Narima's intrigued. He's like, He's like, they look eager. So yeah, I'm looking. Really like this chapter. Looks like the next like big matchup is going to start next chapter. Whether or not it's going to be the final one of this manga, I don't know. I doubt it. I think it's just basically it's going to be Haitani and Suzuki, defeating Narima so that they can move on, and then that will lead into like the next arc. As like they have to get past Narima, you know, basically kind of like a lot of shonen series. You lose to someone, you surpass someone you're trying to surpass, and then once you surpass them, you move on to the next stage. That's probably how they're going to do it because I don't think it's going to be this in just like this, because no, you still have a championship you gotta get to. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll end at the championship whenever that is. So yeah, I really like this chapter. Looking forward to next week's. Uh, Star of Beethoven, Chapter 13. So in this one, Yasuo wakes up in the home of Amano Suzume, aka Amazu. Basically, she's like some famous internet singer. And, basically when she was a kid, she did a bunch of piano competitions. That's how she learned about Yasuo. So she wants Yasuo to like perform music that she writes. Apparently, that's what inspired become a Mazu in the first place. And so basically, Mazu tries to like write a song for for him to play. And, there's like some issue with the deadline, and yeah, yes. So yeah, basically like there's like basically she takes like a week to like make like write it, and she's in the zone trying to write it. Yeah. So yeah, basically like he's what, and he also wonders if Beethoven's left his place yet, and he's like, yeah. Then we see Beethoven, just waiting for him, kind of bored, trying to figure stuff out. So it looks like we're heading to like basically Yasuo's trying to figure out more about why he's playing the piano, why he wants to do it, and so yeah. Basically, they're both pondering whether or not each of them will be able to face like their own music, like where Yasuo will be able to play it. It seems Amazu's been able to like finish it, and yeah, of course Beethoven's writing his piece, whatever. So yeah, that was an interesting chapter. You know, I want them to go ahead and deal with whatever those two people that are trying to find Beethoven. Want them to go ahead and deal with that, so we can figure out what the heck's going on. Of course, you have all the stuff with the school, dealing with all the people there. So yeah, hopefully a lot of that stuff should happen soon. So yeah, I'm like this chapter, looking forward to next week's. MobLand episode 7. So in this one, Harry's still trying to find Seraphine and Brendan, who have been taken by this cartel that's working with Richie. And so Richie, is called by Maeve, who tells him, hey, asks him, hey, why'd you get Brendan? You only supposed to get Seraphina. Richie's like, I don't care. He's like, I'll do what I want. And it's like the whole eye for an eye thing. And apparently, the cartel that Richie hired, basically, the reason the leader was willing was because, you know, basically, like, Conrad had insulted his father. And so he was very willing to go after, like, and basically, Harry goes on a whole goose chase. He finds these Moroccans who are who run the Antwerp docks, and basically, he tries to figure out where they're at, like Brenda and Seraphine are at, and he's eventually able to find, and so Jaime Lopez, who's the leader of the cartel doesn't have a name. You know, basically, he gets a call from this rich person named Kat, who Harry had, you know, basically, Kat was an associate of Harry's. How they're associated, I don't know. It's not said. Probably in a later episode they will reveal that. Basically, Kat told Lopez to not kill Brendan and Seraphina. Unfortunately, Brendan was already dead. Basically, Richie had Lopez send a live video link to Kevin, Conrad, and Maeve to show like basically the cartel used a chainsaw to kill Brendan and Serafina. And Brendan was already dead by the time the call from Kat came in. So Serafina is saved, but Brendan is not. And yeah, dude, that is freaking brutal. Like using a chainsaw to kill him, that was ooh, that's brutal. I mean, it's a cartel. Cartels are freaking brutal. I mean, so yeah, that's gonna be something. I mean, far as what happens, Conrad's gonna be pissed because his son's dead. And then there's a whole thing where I guess Gina and Eddie get to know each other. Yeah, and so Jan, she gets a call from, she gets a call from Alice, her friend, who's like an informant for, for the cops. And so Paul, who's like a enforcer for Conrad and Maeve, overhears Jan use the phrase "killers and gangsters." He thinks that she's like giving Alice information about the business, which she's not, not, which she's not. He's a little suspicious. Paul's a little suspicious. He's like, "Hey, what the heck's going on?" Jan's like, "You gotta know the context." And so, yeah, it's weird. So like Gina, Eddie tries to get with Gina, and she's able to see through it, but she still like hooks up with him. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how old Eddie is. Gina's like 16, so she's a high schooler. So I mean, the UK does have different rules than the United States, different laws than the United States, but does it make it right? No, no, it doesn't. Not at all. But Eddie's a freaking prick. He's not shown to be like a moral person, obviously. So that's going to cause issues for Harry because Harry freaking hates Eddie. So if he learns about Eddie getting with his daughter, he's going to be pissed. And, of course, you have the stuff with Conrad talking to Gina, whether some theories are that he's trying to get with Gina because, he's had a bunch of mistresses. It wouldn't be that out there. Or Gina is Conrad's daughter, and Jan may have been one of Conrad's mistresses, whether it was while she was married to Harry or before. I don't know. Kind of like with what happened with Kevin's wife, or Kevin before he and his wife were married. His wife was a mistress of Conrad's, which has led to some theories that Eddie is actually Conrad's son. Yeah, if Gina is Conrad's daughter, that's gonna cause some complications regardless. Like, it's like, okay, if that was the case, either she's screwing her nephew she's either screwing her nephew or her brother. Yeah. Game of Thrones mobsters, let's go. Yeah. And of course, Maeve, when she tells Conrad she got a text from from Richie about about him having Seraphine and Brendan. Conrad's like, show me the text. She's like, what? You don't trust me? He's like, show me the text. She's like, she's like, she words is like by asking, like Conrad asking for him to see, asking to see the text that Maeve got. That's a sign he doesn't trust Maeve. And I'm like, well, he has every right not to trust Maeve. I mean, I don't think he does trust her. And that conversation probably would have escalated further and like basically Maeve would have been caught as like a mole or something if Kevin hadn't come in with saying anything before. So Maeve is alive for now. Looks like they're setting up. It looks like a big confrontation. So like Maeve possibly is gonna go after Jan because Jan, there's suspicions on Jan because of Alice. Because Jan, she's a mob wife technically. I mean, Harry's a fixer. He's not technically part of the family in a sense, but Jan's still a mob wife technically. So there's there's things you don't say. Like I mean, the code of silence. Now, obviously, this is like a British mobster, so the code of silence thing may not be as big of a thing, like as is with the Italian mafia. But like you still don't want to talk. You like there's probably a chance Jan's gonna get killed. Like Maeve or Conrad might have Jan killed for being the whole loose lips, sink ships. You know that could turn Harry against Conrad. Because that's been a potential conflict that's that could have happened anyway, like of Harry versus Conrad. That's been a potential conflict basically since at least since Conrad went into Jan's home and had a little conversation with her. And if Gina is Conrad's daughter, that could really turn Harry against Conrad. He'd be like, you screwed my wife. What the frick? I mean, that could, yeah. And of course, Maeve. They're saying a lot's going to lead to a potential conflict between Conrad and Maeve. I mean, that's been set up since the beginning. Like, I think one's going to kill the other. Between Maeve and Conrad, one of them's going to kill the other. Because Maeve basically has been the one who's like seems to instigate this game war. She, I think, is the one responsible. I don't know if they directly said that. So Conrad took credit for the Vron's car blowing up with her inside it, but very likely that Maeve is actually the one that did it, and Conrad's just taking credit to look like he's in control. Because basically, if someone blew up a rival's car without his approval, that could make him look weak. So he took credit in order to look stronger. Simple, especially if it's his wife's the one that did it. I mean, so yeah, Maeve seems to want a game war for whatever reason, and whereas to like, you know, make Conrad back to being, the strong, deadly mobster that he once was in the past, or to like as a long game to take vengeance upon Conrad for cheating on her a lot. So yeah, I thought it was a really good episode. Looking forward to see how next week's go with how everyone's gonna react to Brendan's death, and Serafina returning. That's gonna be like May probably is not gonna like Serafina. She's gonna be like, she's probably like, why did you have to be the one to live and not my son? It's probably how it's gonna go. It's probably something like that. So yeah, I really like this episode. Looking forward to next week's. Rogo Loser Ranger Season 2, Episode 5. So in this one, basically like this is seems like the last episode of this arc. So everyone's trying to figure out where Magadia is, and so basically, Fighter D, basically he sees as one student being suspicious, so he does all these like school violations. Then Hisui notices that he's trying to observe things, so she joins in on the school violations, and so the student that they're suspicious of is that detective's brother, who he was trying to search for the past half year. And then the brother said like, "Hey, I've only been here for a week. What are you talking about?" And then that like determines that basically it's a real that student is actually Magadia in disguise. So yeah, basically he was like a vessel or something for Magadia. Then basically he creates his like giant staircase, realm, whatever. Basically they have to fight. So Fighter D and Hisui have to fight. And so Detective was stabbed by Magadia. And Tsukubo like tries like, you know, basically keep an eye on the detective, make sure he's safe while Fire D and Hisui fight Magadia. Then Chidori appears and it's revealed that he's the Greenkeeper. And he's able to very easily defeat Magadia. Now Magadia lives and he kind of escapes, but and then Gato is taken into custody. So the two detectives, since they know the culprit was a boss monster, so whether or not this is going to go public, I don't know. I haven't read this far into the manga yet. I plan to do that eventually. But so we're gonna lead into like so Chidori being the greenkeeper, that obviously that's effective Fire D, how he's gonna handle that. Simple like that. This is like the first time he had met a keeper while they're not wearing their suit. Because all the other ones he had met, even when they're like, yo, mask was off or helmet, whatever, they still had some form of uniform on. So yeah, this is gonna be it's gonna be interesting how he reacts. Chidori a little eccentric. You know, doesn't seem to necessarily be evil per se, like like Red Keeper. I mean, of course, Pink Keeper being Sakurama's sister, she's shown to not as much be evil, but more like she has a very unhealthy obsession with her brother. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was a really good episode. I'm interested in how next week's goes. See if more happens with Greenkeeper. Nice Prison, Chapter 3. So in this one, Mitsuboshi and Tara arrive at, cell block 11. So they find the last member of the Elite Four and, and defeat them. And so basically, they're able to quickly, basically deal with, cell block 11. Then they save the warden named Kurai, who gives them a list of a bunch of these other like wardens, you know. And so basically, in order to defeat the super death row prisoner, and yeah, so yeah, that's really is. You have like some of your wardens. You have some guy who looks like it's like a mascot warden called Nova Neon. It's like a flower thing. You have a caveman warden named Uga or Uga, whatever, probably Uga. That sound more caveman like. Scrap warden named Boro was like a damaged robot. A warden dog named Mr. Dog was like a corgi. Yeah, maybe he's smart like Ein from Cowboy Bebop. Then you have a not warden named Pachapo. It's like some woman or something. You know, Tara's like none of these look like good wardens. you know, basically, yeah, it's like just trying to find people to, I guess, deal with this super death row prisoner. And yeah, that's really it. Thought this was a decent chapter. Really funny. Some of the gags were great. Tara's reactions was funny. And I look forward to next week's chapter. Spy Family, chapter 116. So in this one, director McMahon, Yor, and Hemlock arrive at that forest and near the border in order to deal with the poachers. So while they're driving there, they all start talking. Hemlock is like tells Yor tells Yor he thinks she's soft because she's married. You know the director's like, hey, I'm married too. Yor asked about, his wife. She said, he says that, she's a civilian, so they don't talk about work. And, basically she asked him if they kiss after days of work. He's like, well, probably in their younger days. She's like, crap. And then Hemlock's like, hey, this is inappropriate talk. And he's like, if you're gonna be a professional killer, you should not be part of society. So Hemlock really likes killing, and so yeah. So when they get there, they see this antler on the ground, and so it's a type of antler that's the type of elk that it is. You know, is very valuable. So a Mithrin elk, they don't shed antlers, because I guess a lot of deer they shed their antlers at least, but the Mithrin elk in Spy Family they don't shed their antlers. So when they and due to that fact, their antlers get longer and a lot bigger, and so poachers really like them. So they're very valuable, and that's why they're on the brink of extinction. So they find some Hemlock finds some footprints, and so they try to find like track the poachers. They see this the elk. Hemlock throws a branch at a poaching trap in order to save the elk. But the director's like, hey, let's be careful not to damage the vegetation. Hemlock's like, don't tell the shopkeeper. So then the elk starts running. Poachers are shooting at it, and so the elk kills stabs one of the poachers. It probably kills him. Like he's probably dead. And so two of the other poachers go back to grab some machine guns and poisoned arrows. And then Hemlock, kills them, basically decapitates them. Yor kills some others. Hemlock basically you have them. And Hemlock tries to kill these two others, but him, the director, like deflect throws another weapon to like deflect them. Well, deflect one of them, basically because so that they can let one live, so that they can be led back to a camp. And so the direct McMahon tells Yor and Hemlock to help to calm down the elk while he goes to deal with to go goes to the camp. Hemlock wants to just kill the deer, and but Yor's like, no, we gotta protect it. McMahon's like, protecting the elk is part of their job. He's like, hey, protecting those things part of our job. Along with killing the poachers. And so, and basically, he tells him like, if you kill the elk, if you hurt that elk, the shopkeeper's gonna hear about it. And they're trying to calm it down. Then Hemlock throws a weapon at Yor, and Yor's like, what are you doing?" And Hemlock's like, "He could deal with impediment." He's like, "I'm not gonna deal with impediments to my work." And he's like, "Hey, no one said I can't harm you, Thorn Princess." So basically, Hemlock's is trying to kill Yor now. So that should be interesting. That's gonna be interesting. That was not a turn I was necessarily expecting at this point. So yeah, it was a good chapter. Hemlock's an interesting character. Basically, his fact he's so focused on killing is freaking. There is some humor in it. It's actually kind of, like I thought it was a pretty good chapter. Setting up was like a big fight next week between Hemlock and Yor. Both assassins for the garden, so that could be like that's gonna be a high powered fight. Now, how much and that could really do some damage, like to the local area. And so I'm sure the shopkeepers, and if Hemlock's doing this, like basically without any orders from the shopkeeper or anyone, if he wasn't ordered to do this, yeah, I'm sure the shopkeeper's gonna be really pissed off. He's like, you attacked one of your fellow assassins without orders. Like he's like, you didn't need to do that. And he's like, dealing with impediments. I imagine the shopkeeper be like, dealing with impediments is one thing, but just mindlessly going after your fellow assassins is bad for business. I mean, I'm sure that's what the shopkeeper would say. And he's like, you do. I imagine yours probably gonna win, and that probably will earn Hemlock's respect a little bit. The shopkeeper's gonna tell Hemlock probably if he didn't approve it. If this was like an unsanctioned hit, like attack on your Shopkeeper's probably not gonna be happy to Hemlock. He's probably gonna say, if remember you like dealing with impediments, remember that he probably say, I like dealing with impediments too. Remember that if you decide to try something like this again. That's probably what the shopkeeper would tell him, later. Something he probably would tell him something like that. If this is a sanctioned hit or sanctioned attack for whatever reason, whether it's to test your as an assassin, because shopkeeper asked her if she's gotten soft since she's become married. You know, if she's gotten soft, but and this could be a way to test her. You know, I think that this. I'm sure yours not gonna be very happy about, it, but she's like, okay. She wouldn't be pissed off enough to like go after the shopkeeper or anything. I don't think, unless it was an actual hit where Hemlock was told to actually kill her. Now, another question could be: is Yor there because the shopkeeper is suspicious about Lloyd? He wants to have time to spy on him because he might be a little suspicious. Like I don't think he likes Donovan Desmond's faction of the government. So I think he heard Yor, men- Yor mentioned that Lloyd said he's a little interested in what Donovan says. Obviously, he doesn't side with Donovan. I think Lloyd's even told Donovan Desmond's like, hey, look, I don't necessarily agree with your views, but I'm interested in hearing stuff about what you have to say. So, very respectful. So, yeah, like, if the, it's going to be interesting how this develops. If there's more to this mission than just going after poachers and elk, that could be to be determined. Because if it's just dealing with poachers, even if it's at the border, it's like, okay, did you really need to send the garden to do that? I mean, that's what I'm wondering. If you send the garden to do that, there's something else has to be going on. So I mean, a little suspicious about this, but yeah, I'm interested in seeing like how this mission develops. So yeah, look forward to next week's chapter. Last of Us season 2, episode 5. So this one, Ellie and Dina are continuing on to find Abby. They try to hide from soldiers and infected, all that. And Jesse appears. He says that he and Tommy followed them. They snuck out. So yeah, so no, Tommy doesn't seem to appear. It's just Jesse is around. But then basically while they're sitting around, Ellie comes across Nora, who was there with Abby. So basically, Ellie interrogate very brutal, like basically tries to interrogate Nora, beats her, and then has her infected with spores. Yeah, they finally showed spores. An important game mechanic from the games. Involves being infected. They said, "Oh, we didn't want to have characters with masks on, so we didn't do spores." So now they're using spores to do the whole dramatic moment of Ellie basically torturing Nora. Yeah. So yeah. So basically, like Ellie, like y- basically she like Nora says, "Hey, do you know what Joel did? Do you know he killed everyone in the hospital?" Nora says Joel deserted. Abby basically like beats her and Nora figures out that Ellie was the one who was the immune girl who Joel had saved to when he was killing all the fireflies. And Ellie says she doesn't care what Joel did or did do. She just wants to avenge Joel. Similar to how I guess Dino mentioned that, like, I guess when her mother and sister were killed by someone, she ain't care about whatever her family treated her. She just wanted to kill the guy for killing her mother and sister. So yeah, basically it's meant to be very brutal. You know, yeah, I mean, it's like Ellie is, going down this path of revenge. You know, let's just say it's not going to be very satisfying. With these paths of revenge, if you're gonna, well, okay, people who play the games know what happens. They know that she spares Abby at the end. She's like, I'm stepping away from revenge. But the way they do that, it's not earned. There's a way to do that and have it feel earned, like with Assassin's Creed 2, with Ezio sparing Rodrigo Borgia, and well, what, I'm gonna get to more on this whenever they get to that point, which will either be season 2 or season 3. You know, basically like yeah, so all the stuff with the WLF and they're and the scars, they're trying to deal. Ellie, Dina, Jesse are trying to deal with all that. So yeah, and the reason Dina stays behind is because well, she's pregnant and obviously she shouldn't be there at all. And basically, like there's some flashback with Joel talking to Ellie. Yeah. So I don't know where we're gonna end that. If it's gonna end like I guess with Tommy getting stabbed by or whatever by Abby, then I guess season 3 will probably deal with the Abby story. That's probably what season 3 is gonna be. It's gonna be very Abby focused. Probably because they know Bella Ramsey can't carry the show, so they're gonna probably gonna be like, oh, let's see if Caitlin Dever can carry it. But yeah, I was not a fan of this episode. It was boring. It took them this long to use spores. Yeah, that's freaking retarded. So yeah, I thought it was a boring episode. You know, didn't care about any about the told torture scene. I was like, okay, from a story standpoint, I don't care. So yeah, well, I'm I'll watch next week's. Like I'll finish out this season. I ain't probably gonna enjoy it, but I'll finish it out. Odor of the Flame, Chapter 1. So this is a new manga series by Suishia that started, today. And so the main character Odor, he's a child. He becomes a cook for like this group of warriors. So it's this very Norse mythology inspired. So they talk about Valhalla. When they die, they go to Valhalla. So the group he's with, they fight these Draugr that are part of the ice. So basically, the Ice Kingdom had attacked the people and attacked everyone. And so like the main villain who basically seems like he's kind of like the Night King from Game of Thrones. Basically, he can turn corpses into like his little like Draugr, so like basically zombies. And so like it's all cold, it's a bunch of snow. So Oder's job is to be a cook and protect the fire. And so basic reason there is to get some money to like help take care of his sister. Yeah, and dude, I mean basically it's almost like this is the way it's kind of like Game of Thrones in the sense of like you have a you also have like a White Walker like group, like winter has come and they're attacking everyone. Everyone's trying to fight like the Night King or something. Or the Night's King. Well, if you're people who know about the books in Game of Thrones. Because there is no Night King yet in the books. Anyway, so everyone's like talking about going to Valhalla. They're like, my door to Valhalla hasn't opened yet. I'll fight again and die. Because in Norse mythology, the way the beliefs work was the only way to go to Valhalla is if you died in battle. You can't die on natural causes. You have to die during battle, and you can't die of your wounds like later on after the battle. It has to be in combat. You have to die, which So that's kind of like in Thor: Love and Thunder, a awful movie. So Lady Sif was injured, but since if she had died, it would have been after the battle and not during it, she would not go to Valhalla. Now that whole logic was thrown out of the way with Jane when she died because she died of natural causes. She should not have gone to Valhalla at all. Like they screwed up their own logic that they established in the beginning of the movie by sending Jane to Valhalla. People were like, "Oh, she was a warrior and dealing with cancer." Okay, yes, but we can say it. Yes, she fought hard against cancer, but Jane in that story, since it was natural causes, she cannot go to Valhalla. Now, back to this story, and that's so basically, these are like These are so in this story. Basically, it's back to this story. So in Odor the Flame, basically all the Vikings, they want to go to Valhalla, and so basically everyone's like frozen and stuff when the Kingdom like attacks. Basically their whole camps, and, Odor's like all that's left. Everyone's either dead or injured, whatever. So he like surrounds the flame and he like asks for the flame to like stay warm. The main character's like some sorcerer who's turning corpses into draugrs. So you have this like two-headed like monster, or something like a two-headed yeti or something. Cool monster. So all basically the I wants to destroy all fire. And it wants to kill everyone and turn everyone to draugrs. And so the captain of the group kills the monster, or he severely injures it, and he tells Oda to not let the flame die, and he's frozen. Basically, everyone starts getting killed or injured, and he's like, so yeah, and he starts thinking back where he would recite up all these like sagas of different famous warriors, and how even though both of them involved the person dying, his sister wants him to not accomplish something by dying. She wants him to be like one of the what were the more interesting sagas, which were the ones who lived. So basically, the sorcerer um, sees Odor protecting the flame, and then Odor's, sorcerer's like, "Hey," he's like, "What are you doing? Burn your clothes. You're gonna freeze it." He's like, "No, as long as I have fire, I can melt everyone." It's like he's not gonna die. And he's like, "I don't care about becoming a hero. I don't care about passing my tales down to the next generation." He is like, "I just want to protect this flame." And the sorcerer's like, "You're a flame keeper trying to be a warrior, so use your nothing." Then he's like, freeze him. Then basically the Odor's like, he's like prays to the flame. He's like, "Hey, I'll give you my soul, my body, just warm everyone." And then basically he like summons this fire sword, and destroys this other monster, and it's like a fire sword. He's like, then this fire talks. He's like, "Thank you for saving your life," and he's like, "Wait, are you a spirit?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah." He and basically the fire spirit's like, "Yeah, I was born from whatever life you breathe into the fire." So basically, Ogre's like, "I'm not a sorcerer," and spirit's like, I know you're a warrior." And he's like, it's his duty to fight. And so the spirit's like, I'm gonna share my life with you. And so Oder like kills all the Draugr and like sends them to Valhalla. And he's like, you're gonna pay for going for screwing with people's souls like that. And he's like, he goes, looks like he like kills the sorcerer. He defeats the sorcerer and sorcerer's dead. Then like everyone, I guess a lot of people are freed, few survivors, and so like a lot of the Draugr are killed, and the enemy retreats. And then Spirit assumes a human form, introduces itself as a Filg Filgja, spelled Fylgja. Yeah, I'm not the one who comes up with spelling. And so it's like they're preparing to like next, and I was like, wait, why was I chosen? Phil just like, I don't know. Maybe it's like your heart was the only one you're not yearning for death, and like was the warmest heart. And basically Oder like he's like, huh, chosen by spirit. Sounds like something out of like one of those epic sagas. Then he falls unconscious. Then everyone's like, hey, Oder's unconscious. Let's get him to the fortress. Like I guess for medical. So it was like next chapter will show him recover from his injuries, whatever. So yeah, I thought it was a good start to a series. Good fan. Looks like it's gonna be a good fantasy series. Dealing with like some ice demon like thing. Probably something that can actually, an ice demon, literary work that can actually finish. Unlike George R. R. Martin with his books. Hey George, we're still waiting on your books. Try finishing it before this series is done. I doubt this series will fit. This series could probably get through like 200 chapters if it goes that far before George ever finishes his books. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was a really good chapter, really good start, good pilot chapter. Really looking forward to next week's. This could be a decent series. It could be like a sleeper hit for like manga. And that's it. Did y'all like the stuff I reviewed? And if you have your own opinions about all that, you put all that in the comments. Thank you for watching, and like, subscribe, and all that. And look forward to the next video.